Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I am your teacher, Dr. Khurram Shehzad. Since we have been talking about pragmatics, our today's lecture is related to the idea of context. So today we are going to talk about that what is the relationship of context in pragmatics and how far can we say that it is important in understanding the meaning of context or the meaning of utterances that we are speaking or the meaning of text that we are reading. So this lecture talks about two types of context. Namely, it is called linguistic context or non linguistic context. Some of the people call it linguistic context and extra linguistic context. So, we need to understand the relationship between meaning and context and the way in which context affects the meanings of the words and how to make use of the context. In my previous videos, I have already talked about Delheim's model. If you remember, I said that it is a mnemonic device, speaking, where Delheim talks about context in detail. Context is also known as setting. Context means the physical environment which exists in the society when we are talking. So, context is a vital clue in determining word meaning. Namely, it can eliminate ambiguity, indicate reference, and provide clues for inferring word meaning. First, a word or even a sentence without adequate context can be quite ambiguous. Yes, in semantics, where we have talked about that words on the page or meanings, words which exist in the dictionary or meanings or their meanings which exist in the mind, if there is no context, we cannot determine the truth value of the sentence, we cannot determine the reference, and if we do not know the reference, it becomes very difficult to understand the exact meanings of the text, to understand the exact meaning of the sentence. So it is hard to determine the exact meaning, especially when the word is polysemous or the sentence structure has a difference in interpretation. Secondly, some structure has some reference like pronouns, nouns may refer to anything or anybody. As for a pronoun or a noun, if we know what its exact meaning or referent is, we have to know it from its context. Thirdly, context provides important clues in understanding unknown words or inexact meanings. The clues can be definition, explanation, examples, synonymy, antonymy, hyponymy, relevant details, or word structure. As I have told you, that context is of two types, linguistic and non linguistic. So, what is the role of context so far as linguistics is concerned? We should remember that it eliminates ambiguity, number one. Number two, it indicates reference. Number three, it provides clues for inferring word meaning. Types of context. Definition of linguistic context, also known as verbal context, and extra linguistic or non linguistic context. Linguistic context refers to the words, clauses, sentences in which a word appears. So remember that words, they always appear along with other words. So before that word or before that sentence, there will be number of words or number of sentences. And after that word or after that sentence, again there will be multiple words or multiple sentences. But so far as non linguistic or extra linguistic context is concerned, it is the physical situation, embracing the people, time, place, and even the whole cultural background. So, non linguistic context includes the physical environment in which language is spoken. For example, if the setting is of a classroom and I am a teacher and you are the students, so of course the classroom will provide us the physical environment. The classroom will provide us the setting where teaching and learning process will go on, and there will be interaction between the teacher, me, and you. Types of context: linguistic context, verbal context, or extra linguistic context, or non linguistic context. The writer cites five examples to show how important extra linguistic context affects the meanings of the word: quick, lookout, trade, union, landlord, and weekend. For example, there is lexical context. It refers to the words that occur together with the word in question. The meaning of the word is often affected and defined by the neighboring words. For example, head has quite a few meanings in the dictionary, yet in each of the following contexts, it conveys only one sense. From head to foot, a head of the state, a head of cabbage, a department head, a count head to count heads, 100 head of sheep, at the head of the list, to discuss the question under five heads, to lose one's head, to use your head. Two heads are better than one. Another example is hard. For example, hard work, hard blow, hard discipline, hard winter, hard heart. So you can see that hard, it is used in different contexts, and in every context it is providing different meaning. Then the word head, it is used, and every time it has got different sense, different meaning. For example, from head to foot, head of the department, head of the cabbage. So it has multiple meanings. Every time the context changes, the meaning changes. I give you another example of the word tea. For example, tea has fallen down, bring a mop. It means that tea is in liquid form. Tea has fallen down, bring a broom. It means that tea is in leaf form. Tea has fallen down, pick it up and put it on the shelf. It means that we are talking about tea jar. So, three sentences, three different contexts, and meaning of the word tea, it changes in every context. Whenever some other sentence is spoken, the meaning of the first sentence in which the word tea is used, it changes. Then there is grammatical context. In some cases, the meaning of a word may be influenced by the structure in which it occurs. This is what we call grammatical context. And I have just given you the example of the word tea, which was used in the sentence, and every time the grammatical context was different, the meaning of the word tea, it was different. This is what we call grammatical context. For example, make can be used in different sentence patterns. Its meanings will be different. God made the country, man made the town. The bad news made everybody depressed. She will make a good teacher. He is going to make us a report. So, in all these sentences, every time the word make it is used, it is giving different meaning. Now, what is the role of context? We have already talked about that context plays three different important roles. Number one was elimination of ambiguity. Ambiguity often arises due to polysemy and homonymy. So lexicographers, they have also devised, a system to deal with polysemy and homonymy. When a word with more than one meaning is used in inadequate context, it creates ambiguity. Now look at the sentence, are you engaged? It has got two different meanings. Number one, are you busy? Number two, are you betrothed? Are you engaged means that you are engaged with some other person with whom later on you can marry. This door is unlockable. Again, it has got two meanings. The door is not able to be locked. Number two, this door is able to be unlocked. She is an English teacher. So she is a teacher who teaches English. Number one. Number two, she is a teacher with British nationality. If the word teacher is stressed, grammatical structure can also lead to ambiguity. Jack and Jane are married. So Jack is married to Jane, or Jack and Jane are married to each other, or Jack is married and so is Jane. So it means that we need to understand the context, that how the word or the sentence it is spoken. Later on, when I'll talk about extra linguistic or non linguistic context, I'll explain some of the other things which will help determine that how these words we can determine their meaning. Number two, what is the role of context? Indication of reference. English has a large number of words such as now, then, here, there, I and you, this or that, these and those, which are often used to refer directly to people, time, and place. And this will be the topic of our next lecture, where I will be talking about dexis in pragmatics. So, there in detail, we will be talking about these referents. So, of course, context again talks about reference. Without clear context, the reference can be very confusing. City or town, afternoon or evening, evening or night, forest or wood, their referents are very vague. And number three was provision of clues for inferring word meaning. Context may prove extremely valuable in guessing the meaning of new words. In a piece of writing, the author generally gives hints which help readers to understand the idea or the idea or grasp the concept. Context clues are vary a great deal, but can be summed up as follows. For example, definition. We often find the author gives formal definition immediately after the new term. In the books, it happens whenever the author is introducing a new term. So, after a few words, that term is defined. Look at the sentence. Perhaps the most startling theory to come out of kinesics, the study of body movement. So, what is kinesics? The study of body movement. And comma is coming after kinesics, which is telling that another noun phrase is going to explain its antecedent, that is kinesics, was suggested by Professor Bird Wistel. Explanation. If the concept is complicated and must involve technical terms in its definition, the author might explain the idea in simple words. It is just one more incredible result of the development of microprocessors, those tiny parts of a computer commonly known as silicon chips. Example. In some cases, instead of giving a formal definition or explanation, the author may cite an example which is sufficient to throw light on the meaning of the term. Many United Nations employees are polyglots. So the word polyglot, it looks difficult here. Mary, for example, speaks 5 languages. So the person who can speak more languages is called polyglot. Synonymy. The author often uses synonyms or synonymous expressions to explain new words. Their greatest fear was of a conflagration, since fire is the word used here for conflagration, would destroy their flimsy wooden settlement before help could arrive. Then antonymy. The author frequently uses contrasting words or statements to explain unknown words. As the fighting on all fronts reached its peak, the economy neared its nadir. Okay. Unlike her gregarious sister, Jane is a shy, unsociable person. So, gregarious means it is the antonym of shy and unsociable. Okay. So, Peak's antonym was nadir. Then hyponymy. Superordinates and subordinates often define and explain each other, thus forming an important context clue. The village had most of the usual amenities. So, what are those amenities? A pub, a library, a post office, a village hall, a medical center, and a school. So, such type of relevant details with the help of words like synonyms, antonyms, hyponymy, okay, authors they explain different kinds of words once they are used first time in the context. Now, before I go on to talk about non linguistic context, it's very important that I recapture here. We have talked about linguistic context. Context means physical environment, space on the page, words which are coming before that specific word or sentences which are coming before that particular sentence or after that particular sentence. So, context is there on the page, linguistic context. It is also called co-text. And I have talked about that context, it helps to eliminate ambiguity. Number two, context helps to explain the reference. Now, then, this, that, these, those. And in detail, when I am making a video on the axis in pragmatics, I'll explain them. And number three was some of the new words that we use while explaining with the help of synonyms, antonyms, hyponymy, or polysemy. Context helps us to define all these things. Now, we should understand the concept of non linguistic context. In non linguistic context, we have got three things: people who are communicating, place where it is communicated, and time when it is communicated. So, we have already read in semantics of pragmatics context of utterance, context of utterance meaning. And in pragmatics, we have talked about that how human beings they use language in context. So role of human beings cannot be eliminated. Role of context cannot be eliminated. So we will have to see that how the context will be determined. It will be determined via the people who are interacting with each other or one another. If there are two or more than two people, though these two people or more than two people, they have got relationship with each other or one another. So their relationship will determine that what kind of language they are going to speak, what kind of sentences, what kind of linguistic choices they are going to make. When I know that I am talking with my near, close friend, my language is altogether different. And when I am talking with the HOD of my department or dean of my department, then my language is very different because the context is different. His office, that is altogether a different place where only formal activity at least should go on. If I do not have very close relationship, then formal activity should go on and formal relationship will be displayed, and in formal relationship formal language will be used. But if somebody comes to my office and he is very close to me, then of course tea will be served, gupshup, chit chat will go on, and informal language will be used. And my interaction, because the person is very close to me, will be different. My sentences, the language that I am using, the kind of verbal choices that I am making, they will be altogether very, very different. So, time also plays a very important role. when you are analyzing the text, how meaning making process it goes on. So what is the time, what is the relationship between the interactants, and how something is spoken, what are the non-verbal language modes used by the people. Look at, I am using my hands, my gestures, my facial expressions. They all convey meaning when we interact with each other or one another. Therefore, non linguistic context is social. It can be pragmatic, it can be cognitive, it can be psychological. Levinson, David Noonan, Widdowson, Chomsky, they talk about cognitive structures. Van Dyke, he also talks about cognitive structures, cognitive context, context which exists in our mind, how the person conceptualizes the idea, and then accordingly he or she speaks with the world or to the world. So people sitting in Pakistan and people sitting in America, they have different worldviews, they have different cognitive structures, they have different mental models. So, of course, the understanding of the phenomena, the understanding of the event, the understanding or the conceptualization of the event in America, of course, for example, of marriage ceremony or of a death ceremony is different, and it is different here in Pakistan. We know that if somebody has died, what kind of clothes we are supposed to wear, what kind of interaction we are going to have, what kind of activities we are going to perform when somebody has died or somebody is getting married. And in American culture, they know that how they should perform these activities. Later on, we will talk about speech act theory. Of course, I have already told you that some kind of speech acts, we make use of them directly, and sometimes we make use of them indirect speech acts. So sometimes our speech acts they are direct, we are passing orders, and sometimes our speech acts, okay, we are not passing orders but we are making requests. So in speech act theory we will talk about these things. Anyways, these people who talk about cognitive structures or cognitive models, they explain the world or they explain the restaurant as if it is physically present. So in their cognitive structure, whatever they have explained it. But in reality, when you go to a restaurant, you may not find the restaurant in the same manner, in the same way as it is explained by someone who believes in cognitive linguistics. But anyways, you should remember that we have got in non-linguistic context, cognitive context, we have got social context, we have got cultural context, we have got religious context. So of course, language is spoken by our leaders, our political leaders, keeping in mind the socio-cultural background of the people, that they what they believe in, what they like, what they want to hear, what they do not believe in, and what they do not like or what they do not want to hear. They will not be talking about those things. You go to a mosque in Pakistani culture, you will see Molvi Saab who belongs to a particular sect, the religious scholar who belongs to a particular sect. He will be talking about those things that people want to hear. So he will be eulogizing himself or his sect, and he will be criticizing the others whom they do not believe in, whom they do not like. So we have got two types of context: linguistic context, also called co-text, and non-linguistic context, in which role of human beings, time and setting, they all play a very significant role. And we need to understand that who is interacting with whom and how language is made use of. Thank you very much.